Okay. Now, here's the deal. So I'm going to do a little introduction here for all the people out there in internet land. My name is Michael McCafferty, and I have been selected to be the entrepreneur who's going to answer a bunch of questions for a college student who's taking a course on entrepreneurship. Is that what it is? Yeah?
Yes, an intro course.
And your name is Fidelia. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Okay. And should we say the last name, because I don't know this is Spidel, who is French. He's a very French person and descended from French people, but we won't hold that against her. And from what I understand, I'm the only entrepreneur that you're going to be interviewing.
Yes.
So if you fail, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Right, I understand. Okay, so with that as an introduction, you're going to ask me a bunch of questions, and I'm going to answer them as best I can. Uh-oh, something paused. We paused.
Oh.
No, we're back. We're back. Okay. If this fails, we'll just keep trying. Okay? You want to sit here
sure.
and look at your lovely daughter?
I would love to. Hey, lovely daughter.
Hello.
All right. Can you see him okay?
Yes.
Yeah?
Put on yours.
That's your father. You
me.
recognize him. Okay. There you go. And then you're going to be looking at me. Okay. Right? Okay. Are we good?
Yes.
All right. So, the only other bit of introduction that I'd like to do is to say that this is the first time in all of recorded history, Now, next year I'm going to be 75, so I want you to know this is the first time in 75 years that any man has ever asked me to talk to his daughter. All right? So, I just want to recognize that fact for all of history. So,
And since you involved me in this shooting,
Yes.
I must say that is why I'm here physically with you.
I understand that.
To
I
make
understand
sure
it.
that everything...
I understand it, but I still want to recognize the unique situation. Okay. So,
Hey, Fifi, why don't you introduce yourself quickly? Say what you've been doing, where you lived, where you study, and what is the project about before you shoot some questions.
okay.
Okay. Fidelia Spidel. I'm a sophomore at Syracuse University.
What university?
Syracuse.
Syracuse University. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. New York.
Yep. Upstate.
Yeah. Very good.
So I'm studying international relations, and then a minor in marketing. And so I have to take this course, Intro to Entrepreneurship and Emerging Enterprises. And we were assigned a project, and it's to do a field interview on any entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur.
Of course. You don't want failures. You know. Yeah. Now, is Syracuse near Watkins Glen?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Okay.
Mike,
No problem.
I can tell you one thing, it's bloody cold.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. My daughter went to this college in Buffalo.
Oh God, same thing, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Very close to Canadians. Yeah. All right. So,
Shoot, baby.
without further ado,
Okay, well, I've actually been reading your blogs and your website, and a lot of the information I need is on that.
wow. So we don't really need to do this then.
Maybe I'm more interested in what interested you at first in entrepreneurship, or did your parents have any entrepreneurial skills, or yeah.
I consider it to be a genetic defect, my interest in owning my own business. My father owned his own business, a place called McCafferty Ford, which was right outside of Philadelphia. And he started that from scratch after being a used car salesman and a finance guy for cars for a long time, and then started his own place. And it still exists. He started that in 1954, and it still exists. And I grew up watching what it took to be an entrepreneur. So, never home, a lot of worries. But he put 6 kids through college, and so he did something right.
6 kids.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's kind of a genetic thing, yeah.
Genetic.
Genetic.
And was your mother ever involved in anything like that? Or?
No, she was a long-suffering housewife, mom. Hey, with 6 kids, I mean, you got time for something else? What?
Did any of your siblings take a similar route to you? Or?
No. Well, my one brother did, and it did not go well. All right, and he has not done something like that since. But the best advice for any entrepreneur is just keep trying. Don't give up.
And then, so during college, you went to St. Mary's?
Excuse me, I just had some of your father's coffee and it doesn't have any sugar in it whatsoever. So I almost had to spit it all over him.
Just for the record.
Yes.
We only share coffee, that's it. We don't share anything else. Lunch sometime, just to make sure.
What are you saying? Like,
Just want to make sure that,
it's just a disclaimer out there. The French man wants to disclaim anything. All right.
Sorry, Fidelia, sorry.
Sorry about that. Brothers and sisters, everything. Oh, college. You
Yeah.
said college.
Or during high school, maybe high school. I
Well,
saw there was something about working at a bowling alley and laying pins.
I've had a bunch of different jobs, okay, and during elementary school and high school, that was about all you could do is have jobs, work in a gas station, setting pins in a bowling alley, but just anything, anything you could do to make a couple bucks, mow lawns, shovel snow, be a slave, basically, right. So, yeah, it wasn't until college where things bloomed. But you've read all that, I see. Yes, so what can I tell you?
So did you have a decided major going in, or did you know what you wanted to do?
I knew what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And that was not get shot in Vietnam, okay? And the only way you could do that there's 3 ways, actually. You could get married. So I asked my high school girlfriend if she would marry me, and she stopped laughing and said no. So I thought, oh, geez, I guess I got to go to college now, all right? Because that was the only other way that you could escape being shot at. And so I went home and I told my father, I said, look, I think I have to go to college. And he says, oh, really? Where would you like to go to college? He said in a very strangely sarcastic way, because you see, I barely graduated from high school. I did not go to high school for academic excellence. And it was mostly girls and beer. But so my father, he says, where would you like to go to college? And I just told him the only 2 names of colleges that I could think of other than Notre Dame, which is where my older brother went. And I didn't want to be the little brother going to school. So I said, Oxford, Harvard. And when he stopped laughing, okay, he said, I think I might know a place that will take you. And he drove me 3 hours away into a small Catholic college in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and he delivered this one beautiful line that I thought was so perfect. I knew right then that I was in school. He said, this was taught by priests, okay? He said, Monsignor, this is the high-ranking priest, head of the whole school. He said, Monsignor, I know that Mount St. Mary's does not need my son, but my son needs Mount St. Mary's.
Yes.
I said, oh,
There you go.
that's it.
That's it.
My father, did I tell you my father was a used car salesman? He could sell me.
You
He
could sell
could sell
everything.
anything, yeah.
Nice story.
All right, so where were we? We were in college doing businesses, starting businesses, entrepreneur thing in college.
Yes.
Have you fallen asleep yet? Have you?
No.
No? Okay.
And then while you were growing up, so still in high school or college, were there any role models you grew up looking towards, like your father, or at the time people who really interested you? And
No, none.
no.
I mean, you know, my father was doing his thing, but, you know,
Mm-hmm.
for me to think about being a Ford dealer while I'm still in college, no, I had to scale my things down a little bit, you know. So, no, I really didn't have any role models, mentors, nothing like that at all, you know. I just knew I didn't like being broke.
Mm-hmm. And then, and so during college, was there a specific day or time or after a specific like venture that you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or did it just happen after?
Well, you know, that's a really interesting question because, you know, I never thought that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Matter of fact, I don't think I ever even heard the word entrepreneur until like maybe, I don't know, 20 years after college, all right?
Okay.
But looking back on it, it's kind of like, for someone to ask me when did I decide that I wanted to be an entrepreneur is kind of like asking a fish, how would you like to go for a swim? All right? I mean, fish doesn't know swim. It just happens. He just does it. You know, a bird doesn't think, oh, let's go flying.
Right.
You know, they just do it. So I never really thought of being an entrepreneur. It's just that I always let me put it this way. I'm kind of like I look for the path of least resistance. I look for the optimum path from A to a whole bunch of money. Okay? So I know that's not going to happen working for somebody else. So if it's going to happen by me. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got to figure out a way to do that. So, yeah.
Okay.
And that was the birthday cake adventure that
I
you
saw
read
that too.
about, and restaurant that I started, and
So would you say those were your first in like solo ventures of entrepreneurships, the small companies during college?
yeah, and they were all, you know, I owned it, okay?
Okay.
Except for the restaurant, I had two partners. All three of us put in $50 each to start a restaurant, so, you know, it was bootstrapping, I think you might call it today. Yeah.
And
But it was
so
really more a way to meet girls than it was a way of making money, you know. Because it was an all-boys Catholic college. I didn't mention that. So there was a girls' college right down the street. So that was, you know, it was a way to get them. It was like a trap, you know. If we could get them in here for a sandwich,
Then
you know, chat them up.
there you go.
You know, yeah.
and then we can add, so except for finding the girls, were there any other primary motivations for starting the businesses?
Well, sure, just something to do, make money, and just do something on my own as opposed to getting a job in a gas station again, you know.
Okay.
I mean, I did have a job at a truck stop, but have you ever tried cleaning the windshield of an 18-wheeler? You're standing on a ladder in a driving snowstorm, washing the windshield of an 18-wheeler. You know, this is not a fun job, all right?
So, do you mind if I follow up some question after you on the same theme? It's quite interesting. That means part of the underlying motivation, am I reading that well, that it was actually not to do that, to escape from things. You've already said twice, oh, I did that, I went to college because I wanted to escape Vietnam. I started doing this thing because I didn't want to be, is that part of the motivation
Well, I would say no, the motivation of going to college was purely to escape getting killed.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. But being an entrepreneur was more like a natural thing for me. I mean, it was just like, you know,
You don't know, but that's what.
I mean, I've had jobs, but
Right.
you know, I can do stuff on my
Right.
own. I mean, I always knew that I was a pretty good salesman.
Right.
You know, I could sell pretty much anything, you know.
Right.
So
Okay.
it was just a natural thing. You know. Natural.
So then, after college, did you stay? Did you go back to Philadelphia, or?
After college? No,
Yeah.
no. It was like the greatest. Did you read the part about the miracle of my graduation from college?
No.
Wonderful story.
Okay.
I recommend it highly for everyone to read.
Okay, so I'll read it. Thank you.
You have read it?
No, I
No.
didn't.
Oh,
No,
it's a
I
wonderful
read it.
story. I could keep you enthralled for probably 10 minutes on that one story alone. I won't do that right now. I'll just recommend the reading
Okay.
because
read
I want to be, you know, respectful of your time. But I was so lucky. I got a job working for IBM.
That's okay. That's when IBM comes in.
And it was like truly a miracle that I even graduated from college, because they told me I wasn't going to graduate. And another miracle that I got a job with IBM, because it was a complete stroke of luck, an absolute stroke of luck. And to have graduated 21 from the bottom of my class, okay? 21 from the bottom of my class, and getting the highest paid job of anyone in my graduating class. It was like this total freak out, you know?
That's the story. Okay, I need to
Like,
read.
how would this like,
Yeah.
right? So I was completely lucky to get a job at IBM, and as soon as I got the job at IBM, my whole life changed, right? I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I had a job selling life insurance. That was my backup, right? That's what I was really going to do when I got out of college. Can you imagine? And but then I got the job with IBM, and everything changed. And I didn't know how great that was going to be until after they sent me to computer school, and I just fell in love with it. I just never looked back. I've just been total computer freak ever since. So
So where was in what state was the computer school?
Washington D.C., but IBM was in Maryland,
Okay.
Hagerstown, Maryland, which was maybe 30 miles from school. So
And then during the time you worked at IBM, did you ever, or when did your next personal venture start, or your next business after IBM?
it was about 3 years. I put about 3 years into IBM, and you know, at the time, it was the greatest company on earth. It was truly the #1 company on the planet. And I got a wonderful education from them, not just about computers, but you know, how to sell to top executives and how to do financial analysis and all the stuff that they probably taught me in college, but I wasn't paying attention in college. But now, when I'm totally in love with this whole thing with IBM, I absorbed everything. I mean, I became a total sponge. So, but it was still a very large company, you know, one of the largest on the planet. And, you know, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and I always made the 100% club. I always sold a lot of computers, but I wanted to get out and do something on my own. So I thought that if I was selling these computers to people and they were, you know, they'd just buy them, but they would use them like 2 or 3 hours a day. And I figured, hey, there's a bunch of people out there that can't afford computers, and there's a bunch of people out there that only need a couple hours a day. If I got my own computer and I could sell time on the computer, I could do applications on the computer, I could be my own service bureau. So that's what I intended to do. So I quit IBM and I moved to Philadelphia and took a job as a programmer, because I knew that if I was going to start my own service bureau, I would need more technical experience. So I took a job as a programmer writing Fortran, and within a year, the president of the company came to me and he handed me a bunch of annual reports for service types of companies and said, I want you to review these tell me what you think. And I said, oh, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you'd like to diversify your hardware business, little computer parts, your hardware business into services. He said, yes. I said, well, that's my plan. I think we might have a conflict of interest here. I took him in my office, showed him the bottom drawer, all the annual reports he showed me, plus a bunch more, and I said my plan was to quit here in another month or two anyway and start my own service bureau. And he says, maybe we can do this together. And I said, okay. So he just let me start a business from scratch, and we became the #1 payroll service bureau in Philadelphia in short order, and we were kicking ADP's butt and doing great. And I stayed there for about 7 years.
Okay.
And built a wonderful business, 3 shifts a day, doing thousands of companies' payrolls, and it was just a wonderful little business. And profitable and all that. But again, this was as a subsidiary to another larger company who was listed on the American Exchange. The name of the company was Technitrol. And the reason I did this was because the president and I had this conversation that if I started this subsidiary, I would get 20% of the subsidiary in stock, but they would put up all the money. Okay? Fast forward 7 years, the president dies. I was a kid. I didn't have anything in writing.
Oh, God.
Right. And I have a meeting with the board, and I say, well, you know, what about that 20%? And they say, oh, we have nothing on that.
Right.
Yeah. In other words, oh, Mr. McCafferty, you're out. All right. I say, well, okay.
Yeah.
So I was rather upset at the time. I just 7 years of my life. This is 3 shift a day operation. You know, I mean, this is full bore entrepreneurship. And so I walked away from that with nothing, and went to Chicago and took over a much larger service bureau operation for a really great guy. My deal was in writing this time. But after a year in Chicago, I said, boy, this is just too damn cold here. You know, I mean, a man should be able to feel comfortable. A successful man should feel comfortable in his surroundings. And this ain't it.
This is
All right, this ain't it. So I gave him a year's notice. And at the end of the year, I packed up all my belongings in a U-Haul truck. And the wife and the children drove a 50 Merc cross country to San Diego. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't have a job here. I just knew that that was the nicest place in the United States. Mm-hmm. And I figured I'd start all over again. And the realization that I had was that all this time, through IBM and through this other startup that I did with Technitrol, Eastern Data Processing was the name of the company that I started. What they were paying for Fidelia was what's in here. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that at the other end of this is feet, and these feet can take me anywhere I want. They're always going to be paying for this, but I got feet. So I had feet and wheels,
Right.
All right, and I moved to the best place on earth and started all over again. And here we are.
And then you kind of answered the question, but if you had to do anything differently, what would you do?
If I could do anything
Differently. So when you were first starting off after college.
Oh, I couldn't have been luckier getting a job at IBM. I think that was God. If there is a God, he was working that day. That's for sure. All right. So I have no complaint about that. And you know, 2 beautiful children. No argument there. Would not change that. I think maybe if there was a do-over involved, I think maybe I might not have gone to Chicago.
Okay.
All right.
So how many years were you in Chicago?
Just two.
2 years. Okay.
Yeah. But I got my first Ferrari in Chicago, so maybe that was a good thing too.
And then maybe one more question.
Just one? Just one?
Two more maybe.
Come on, I have so much more time.
The impact of your business on your family life, or how did it impact that?
Total disaster. All right. There is no such thing as balance when you're starting your own company. All right. It's total focus. There is always, always, always more to do and more urgency than you can imagine when you're starting your own business. And I don't care whether that's your own laundromat business or your own computer time sharing operation. I mean, would you agree with me? You're always on. You can't sleep because you're always thinking about it. All right. Saturdays, Sundays, they're all the same. You're just, it might be Saturday or Sunday for somebody else, but for you, it's like all one long day.
And maybe one specific follow-up question on this one is, do you feel that what you just said is true throughout the entire life of your company, or is it more intense at the beginning and probably less at the end, or different maybe?
Interesting. Certainly at the beginning, it's just full on. All right, and you don't even know that you're doing it. You're just doing it. All right. After, I think when I was doing the Telemagic adventure, I was full bore for 4 or 5 years, and after that, it was like I just realized that. You remember that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Terminator, where his arm's torn off and his face is torn off and everything, and he's crawling along the ground. He says, "I need a vacation." Right? Well, it was like that. All right. I just realized that I'm completely fried. I need a vacation. So I walked into work and I just told everybody. I said, "Look, you people have you people have heard me tell you more than once, like 1,000 times, what needs to be done. You have to know what needs to be done by now. I'm out of here, all right? And I'm out of here. I don't know how long I'm out of here, but I'm gonna take an airplane and I'm gonna head east. And my first stop's gonna be New Zealand, then Australia, then Singapore. I'm just out of here, all right? I don't intend to keep in touch. And I just needed a vacation. I was completely fried. And I was gone for maybe about, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that, and came back. And you know what? I didn't need to be there. So kind of the answer to the question is that these things, they tend to become a habit. And if you don't take the break, if you don't create the space for your health, it's not going to happen. You become addicted, all right? You just have to pull yourself away from it. And, being young and bulletproof, you just keep thinking that, it just takes more effort, more work, and it's going to get better. And that's not a healthy frame of mind.
And I will add one thing, and that was maybe the purpose of my question, because I'm not an entrepreneur. I lived all my life in the corporate world, well organized, and I did work my ass off as well to move, up in the ladder. But now I'm working in the startup world with entrepreneurs, and I guess I'm becoming now one, because you have to. I am less, I've learned that, and therefore those moments of break, those moments of, okay, now it's time for the family, I'm taking them. I think, and I'm working with our founder, and he's like you were at the beginning. He's like no stop,
Total
no,
focus,
exactly.
yeah.
And I try to give him my experience. Say, hey, take some break. It's okay. Things will be done. So maybe it's a treat of the young entrepreneurs that don't have the experience that you have, or that I have, or other people have, that just like burned out. Why? Because I think there is some truth around that, probably.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. It becomes a habit.
Right.
All right, you have to, just like you can try to control the business and the growth and think almost objectively, if you can, about the business. You have to think objectively about yourself and your health and your family and your friends and on and on. So, yeah, I mean, it becomes an addiction, like any other addiction, whether it's cigarettes or drugs or alcohol or anything. You have to pull yourself back from it.
And then stepping aside from all the businesses and entrepreneurship, what made you so interested in planes?
Airplanes?
Yes. Or where did that start?
What little boy doesn't like race cars and airplanes, right? And since I was born during the Second World War, very early in the Second World War, and I was conceived on the day that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, okay? So as a little boy, that's all we heard was airplanes and, etc. And as I was growing up, I always built little model airplanes. And a friend of mine, he built little model ships, okay? Because his father was in the Navy, all right? Well, he grew up and he became the Secretary of the Navy, the youngest ever under President Reagan. And I grew up as a IBM salesman making lots of money. I thought that flying an airplane would be kind of a fun thing to do. So, but I was always told that I would never be able to fly an airplane because my eyes were not 20/20. What they were telling me was that I'd never be able to fly commercial, I'd never be able to fly military. But as an IBM salesman, with a little bit of money in the bank, I saw a magazine called Flying Magazine, and in the back I saw this little ad for Stearman biplanes that they would find in barns out in Kansas and Missouri, and they'd remanufacture them, and you could buy one of these for $7,500. This is like in 1965, right? Which was a lot of money then. And I called them immediately. I said, I want one. I want to buy my own biplane. Yay! How cool is that? And they said, sure, fine. And I said, how much? They said $7,500. And I said, ooh, okay, that's a little more than I have right now, but I'll sell a couple more computers and I'll call you back in a couple months. And they said, okay, fine. So I sold more computers and I called them back and I said, I want my biplane. And they said, well, they're $10,500 now. I said, well, don't go away because, I'll be right back. So in the meantime, I took flying lessons in a really stupid little airplane, a Cessna 150, and just to be sure that I wouldn't get sick if I went flying, because I never flew an airplane before, And so I soloed 8 hours of flying, and I soloed, and I said, I can do this. And in the meantime, my boss, who was also taking, was a pilot, he killed himself in an airplane. He got lost in a fog and augured in, and no more branch manager. And also right about then, I left IBM and moved back to Philadelphia, and it was different airspace, and I was starting this own business, and I was fully consumed. So I never went flying again, never bought the biplane. And if you fast forward 35 years, when I finally sold my software company, it was like, okay, now I got the money and the time to do all those things that I always wanted to do, but couldn't because I was so focused on building my business. The first thing I did was buy a biplane, and then started taking lessons how to fly it. So, yeah, never look back. One of the best adventures ever. Why, do you like flying? Are you?
No, I just saw that there's always pictures of planes and.
Yeah. There's an addiction. Truly.
I'll add one very beautiful story about Michael. If you
I don't know what this story
allow
is.
me.
I have no idea what this story is.
It's related to exactly what you said. I remember we were having lunch together in Denmark, beautiful sun, nice lunch, nice conversation, and at that time, a few months ago, you told me actually I'm building a new company or going into a new venture, and I look at you and I say, why? You've already done it. You've already
Several times,
right? Why? And you say to me something that still resonates. Said, because I can.
because I can.
And I think the plane story is very similar as well. You went there because at that point in your life, yeah, you could.
Everything was possible.
Right.
So if you can do
Right.
anything,
Right.
what's the biggest thing you can do? What's the best thing you can do? Well, flying. Huh?
Flying by
What
plane.
could be
and
better
do,
than flying?
yeah.
Yeah.
But the road to that point
Yeah.
is not that simple.
Right.
Maybe that's the lesson. It's like
Right.
It takes a lot of.
Well, flying is a very addictive thing, and and so is business. Starting your own business, and one addiction is going to take away from the other addiction because it takes full bore, it takes full time. Yeah.
And will there ever be a time that you see yourself not doing any business related thing in the future?
No, I think once you know that you can start anything from scratch and build it into something wonderful, you always have that desire to build something again. And one of the reasons why I advise other entrepreneurs now, like I've been doing for the last 15 years, is advising other startup entrepreneurs, is because I get to play that game. Something paused here.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to
Okay.
look at the sheet.
So I get to play that game with them, building their company. I can be a part of that, but without the addiction. Okay, I can be standoff, objective, help them, and still have the action, be part of the fun of starting a company. And I can do that with several entrepreneurs and several businesses at once, which is even more fun because, some diversification. But yeah, I'm doing that right now. I'm starting actually 2 different software adventures right now. So they're not designed to rule the world, but it's something that keep me off the streets at night. Which many people have told me it's very important for me to do. Try to do that.
Yeah, we want to keep our San Diego
Neighborhood safe.
safe.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I think it answered pretty much the questions that I couldn't find on your
Really?
blog. Let's see.
Maybe you want to ask me one that you could find on the blog, but you want to be sure I wasn't fibbing or making things up.
So when you started the business after the IBM, the
Yeah.
payroll service,
Yeah.
did you ever have any worries going in it, or did you know of any risks you had set aside? Like you knew that there could be risks or no?
One of the wonderful things about being young is that life hasn't taught you too many lessons yet, okay? So that you actually believe that you're bulletproof, or that ignorance of all the things that could go wrong, like I said, it's ignorance. You don't know all those things that could go wrong, so you're not worried about all those things that could go wrong. You're not planning for all those things that could go wrong. You just go full bore, straight ahead, that's it. All right? So being young with lots of energy and ignorance, great bucket loads of ignorance, I think is a very important thing. And that's why you see today so many entrepreneurs, startups are very young. Okay? So, you know, they got lots of energy, and they don't care about all the problems. They just see the future. They just go for it.
And then, because you had the first one didn't go successfully, and the other ventures, did you kind of always grow from them and in the back of your mind keep what happened from the old ones to the new ones? Or
Well, certainly agreements were always in writing after the first misadventure of 7 years of my life, putting it into this business and making them millions of dollars, but you know, I walked away with zip. So certainly that taught me something. But you know, again, when you're young, the ignorance works both ways, all right? Your ignorance of all the things that could go wrong, so you just plow straight ahead. But then that ignorance teaches you some of those things that could go wrong for later, and you get a little smarter. The second adventure, I would say that was just pure pride. That was the PAL adventure. I don't know whether you read up on that one, but that's where I invented the first electronic yellow pages.
yeah, I saw.
Yeah, and that for me was the best thing that I ever did. I thought that that was spectacular. I intended to invent the world's best business by definition, and I did. But then the partner that I had, he bailed out just as we went public with the adventure, and thought it was going to take more money than he wanted to put in. And then I went downhill for a year, and finally found another partner who had more money than God. And then he came to a board meeting one day. We were really up and running and charging hard, and everything was going great. And he comes into a board meeting and he introduces us to the new executive vice president. Now, I was CEO, and he's telling me who the executive vice president is, and I'm saying, hey, duh, this isn't happening. And I stood up in the meeting, and I said, this is bullshit. I'm out of here. Call me when you get your shit together. They never called. 6 months later, they're out of business because I knew all the technical stuff, and I was the one that involved it. You know, the whole thing. I mean, it was my baby. And you know, you take the entrepreneur out of an entrepreneurial business, where are you going with that? All right. And of course, the whole business went south. They bailed, pulled the plug on it, and that was it. But it was purely a matter of pride. All right. If I could have stuffed my pride, I could have had a conversation with him away from the board meeting and not involved him in his pride. And, you know, I'm sure we could have worked it out. But the world's best business, the world's best, bar none. It was fantastic. And now, I don't know, did I ever tell you that story?
No, I don't think so.
Look on the blog, or not the blog, but the story of my business history. It was, at that time, 1979, 80, before PCs, it was electronic yellow pages where you would use your touch-tone telephone to call into my computer, my database, where I had sold advertising to all the advertisers in San Diego. And you could use a touch-tone telephone to spell out the name of a product or service that you're interested in and get answers, voice, okay? And you could use the telephone and my computer for calculator, carpool matchmaking, on and on, all these other services, right? Well, this is before PCs. Now, if you fast forward PCs and then the internet, okay, basically I had my own internet. And then you look at what Google did with AdWords. I was selling AdWords in 1980.
Right. Interesting.
So what I did was I invented this whole thing 20 years before Google. When I saw Google coming out with AdWords, I said, I know what you're doing. I've been there. You know, yeah. So, again, you know, I just walked away from it. Just walked away from it. I said, you know, this is bullshit. I don't need that because why? Because what they're buying is here.
Yeah.
And it's got feet.
Yeah.
I just walked. And I spent the next couple of years independent computer consultant. And from there, I started the telemagic thing. And then there you go. So it's very typical for an entrepreneur to have several false starts. All right? Whether they're failures or missteps or just stupid things to do or whatever. Almost no one makes it the first time, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking to ask you, is how many times it took you to go to, you know, and build the company you've built, Magic, and successful. If you have like 5, 6, or whatever,
Probably, you know, if you took some of the things in college, which weren't really businesses, they were just things to do. They were little adventures or whatever. But if you take the payroll service bureau, the PAL, the electronic yellow pages, they were major businesses, and then telemagic was a third.
So it was a
third time. So I mean, at least 3 times. Some people can do it in 2, but there's an old saying that, you know, most people don't become successful until they're in their 40s and they've had at least 1 bankruptcy.
Right.
You know, and because these things teach you, learn more from failure than you do from success. All right. She's actually taking notes.
Oh, she is.
I think this is wonderful. I talk to people all day long and nobody takes notes. You know, I'm thinking this is great.
You better send us the thing after,
Yes.
huh?
I will work on it after, and I will send.
And I'll send you the video. Oh, the video went.
Too much?
No, I don't think so. Let me see. I think that was a text message came in. No, we're 48 minutes and 22 seconds, and we're still recording here, so you're going to have a long video. You can ask me anything, it's going to be on the video.
I actually have class in.
Got class.
Yes.
See?
She's good.
She would say that anyway. It's just, I got to get out of here. This is too much bullshit for an afternoon. Well, I want to say how delightful it's been, and if this is my greatest contribution in the planet to helping a young entrepreneur, I wish you the very best of success in your business adventures. And if you don't have any of those, I hope you pass the class anyway.
I'm sure I will.
Okay, cool.
Hey, guys, if you need to run. At the same time, next time you're with us, probably in May, I'm organizing lunch for the 3 of us. I'll be there.
Oh, great.
Of course.
Of course you will. Of course you will.
But you have to meet Mike. He's an amazing person. Entrepreneur, of course, but person, most of it. This is it.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take that off the video. There's nothing between us. There's
No,
nothing at all.
just he takes my coffee.
I have a daughter too, and you remind me very much of her. I had lunch with her just today, just before your call. So, yeah, daughters are very special people.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you very much for taking the time.
entirely my pleasure. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, babe.
Bye.
Have fun. That's cool. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Thank you.
She's a lovely lady. She's really nice.